Good morning. Today is Tuesday, August 26, 2025. It's 10 a.m. and I call the meeting of the Platte County Commission to order. Commissioner Burbrick, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda today is the approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Parker?
Yes.
Commissioner Burbrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanover?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Parker?
Yes.
Commissioner Burbrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanover?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, business action items. First one is a public hearing to amend the budget. It is 10:02 a.m. and this public hearing is now open. And with us this morning is Platte County Auditor Kevin Robinson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Robinson, Platte County Auditor. Before you this morning are proposed amendments to the 2025 Commission-approved budget. For the record, in the public hearing, what you'll hear are the funds in departments that are as follows that have proposed amendments. They include the General Fund Lease Fund, Planning and Zoning Deposit Fund, ARPA Recovery Fund, ARPA Sheriff's Grants Fund, Collectors Tax Maintenance Fund, Recorder Use Fee Fund, Road Sales Tax Kansas City Fund, Road Sales Tax Joint Projects Fund, Road Sales Tax Parkville Fund, Road Sales Tax Riverside Fund, Capital Improvement Fund, Countywide Roads Construction Fund. Then within the General Fund, we have Administration, the General Administration, Information Technology, Pretrial Services, Prosecuting Attorney, Sheriff, Emergency Management, and Transfers. The proposed documents were made available, and for clarifications, when I requested this, I said they'd be available prior to 10 a.m. on Friday, August 15th. With this schedule change to the 26th, we actually had to post by 4 p.m., but amendments were posted on the 15th prior to 4 p.m. To meet statutory requirement. In addition to what was proposed, there are several additions to the proposed list for your consideration today. Because this is a fairly lengthy list, I'm just going to address and make sure that it's understood what was added to this list as I go from top to bottom, rather than jumping around. So with that, Commissioners, first, we're going to start within the general fund. The initial item in here is an increase in expense for the postage. This is in anticipation of mailers that were to be sent out, and this is being offset by a contribution from our collector of $85,000 from her TMF fund. So that is a net wash. You will see that come up a little bit later. Jumping down, internet access. This was a rate increase that was not anticipated in the budget. So that's covering the additional costs that we are incurring. Software, same thing. As we're going down this list, and of course, the second column lists the account I'm referencing. If you're not following along, additional $40,000 was needed in software contracts. Again, the rate increase came in after the budget was completed. Next, we have, and this was approved in CO 25 or 2025 CO-110 just a few weeks ago. This is a new grant within the courts. So there's $151,000 that was awarded in the grant. This is an allocation of those expenses based on the grant specifications. As you can see, it's for some salaries and related benefits, and then a few miscellaneous costs. Continuing on down, you'll see there's actually two of these here. An annual increase in official salary. The first one is for the prosecuting attorney for the amount of $1,380. And the next one is the sheriff's, an amount of $1,105. They are tied to the courts, and their raises go effect July 1st. So we do not budget any type of anticipated increase. We wait till the mandate comes down, and then this is how I've done it since I've been in office, adjust their salaries accordingly for the budget. The next item, again, another grant increase. Proceed from sales is the next, almost $22,000. That was disposing vehicles that have been in accidents. And then we did move that expense or that increased revenue over to offset vehicle replacement in the vehicle expense. The next item, there's two in a row, skip one, two in a row. The account number is 10015170 improvements, and this is $740,000. This is the Sheriff's Department entering into a contract with Motorola previous to an originally anticipated schedule due to potential tariff impact on the cost of this. The $740,000, and I see former Captain Avery here, if there's additional questions once I've completed this that he can address, as well as it is on the agenda for 2025 CO 116 today. Okay. So then the next item on here, again, these are additions to what was posted back on the 15th. You see $2,825,000, and you jump down, you see it on the offset of that. As we did the realignment of the legacy system for Tyler ERP, this is actually just moving back into the general fund. All of the transfers out that occurred, if you recall, in our previous structure, we had, for example, emergency management, we had the comm center, and we would transfer funds to offset those operating expenses. Under the old system, we had to break them out separately for tracking. With the new system, we can do the tracking within the system. So again, this was just an accounting function to realign those transfers for the budget. So there is no impact to that. Again, we see the $85,000, which is again the transfer in the contribution towards postage from our collector. Then we see the offset on adding the expense of the $740,000. This is some movement just to account for and keep funds in balance, to put the funds in the right place. So once the first bill comes in for the purchase of equipment and the launch of the new Motorola contract, where we have the ability to pay that. Any questions from general fund? Moving on then. The next item is general financed leased funds. This is where that $740,000, because Motorola is technically a lease, this is where it will be accounted for. Moving into planning and zoning. This is just a balancing entry. The fund was 1025 was anticipated at $10,000 for the year. We're already at $18,000, so we're doing an addition of $20,000 to anticipate expenses. Well, cover the expenses through year to date as well as through the rest of the year, and that was an item that was added posting. The next item is ARPA Fiscal Recovery Fund. This is movement that was actually discussed and agreed upon as part of the budget process and as of developing the budget. It actually started with CO 2024-060. That was the contract with Straub, and that was for $2.7 million. What that language did was the first reference to capital funds under the old structure funding excess over the $22 million from ARPA. So it wasn't moved as part of the budget. We said we would move that this year once we've gotten into it. So we're actually moving $2.5 million with the recent change order. There's been several change orders, as you're obviously aware of, with the courts. I believe it was $222,000 change order. We jumped from $2 million to $2.5 in anticipation of additional change orders in the administration building. So there should be sufficient funds to cover that. Any of the change orders that come through. If not, of course, towards the year end, we'll have to do a cleanup and transfer additional funds. With this, just for the record, after the budget was set, the encumbrances were taken into consideration. With this transfer, there is roughly $617,000 in uncommitted funds within the capital improvement. And of course, once ARPA is done next year and all the construction's done, and we have everything closed out and reconciled, any remaining funds that are in here as an overfunding in this transfer would be returned back to Fund 5000. And of course, we will be looking at this in detail as we're going into the budget, because we are requesting notifications on projects that have been closed, what's still open, what's the percent completed. It's all the stuff we have to report anyway. So we're trying to stay ahead of where that is and be able to provide a good number as we go into the budget. So we can anticipate if there is any additional funding that might be needed. The last item on here, and again, these are again additions to what was posted. The $233,000, the last line item on here, $233,881. This was an ARPA grant to the Sheriff's Department that actually got paid out of ARPA. So we moved the funds over and closed out that special ARPA grant that the sheriff had received. Gets a little easier from here, commissioners. So moving on, here next to the second page, you see that $233,000 to close out the fund being moved back into the ARPA. Next is the collector's maintenance fund, and again, this is where you see the $85,000 coming out of the tax maintenance fund going in to cover additional postage. Next is 2,300 recorder user fee. As part of the budget, there was not an anticipation of paying any salaries out of the recorder user fee this year. He has been paying out, so we did, and this is again in addition to the posting, but we did a lot for part-time salaries, taxes, the fringe benefits, and a couple other expenses that he has posted expenses against, as well as funded $100,000 in contingency for anything else that is unanticipated this year. And we added another $100,000 in furniture and equipment. This is to cover the CO that went through about a month ago or so for the rolling shelves that was considered part of the opera project, but the user fee was to pay for that. The user fee did start the year at $435,000 with only $28,000 budgeted in expenses. So there was revenue to cover these. We've just allocated it accordingly. Kansas City Fund, this is an increase in TIF expense, and there's actually this Parkville Fund and Riverside Fund, again, additions to what was posted. Last year, TIFs came in at 7.5%. Typically, I have budgeted at 9.5%, with last year's coming in at 7.5%, knowing some of the ambassador corridors coming off. I went ahead and dropped and used the 7.5% as the rate to budget, and they're coming in higher this year. So we'll be trying to look at that and working with the treasurer to make sure that properties are aligning and try to figure out why there's an increase over the rate from last year. Joint projects, this is a $200,000 payout that was not anticipated for Oklahoma's project. And then lastly, on the third page, this is a reflection of the activity I've already described coming out of the Capital Projects Fund. And then lastly, here's the monies for the under the Countywide Roads project of the $200,000 as mentioned. With that, I'd entertain any questions you might have, Commissioners.
No questions?
I think I might have a question. The recorder's office, where your proposed budget amendment includes a $100,000 contingency line, right?
Yes, sir.
And there hasn't been a contingency line, at least of that size previously, right?
Correct.
And do other office holders have contingency lines of that size?
Some are larger than that.
such as,
So, such as the assessors. The Missouri statutes allow for a contingency account in anticipation of unforeseen expenses that occur through the year. So, with like this is a special fund, so the revenues stay there if the monies aren't spent. It just allows for a budget adjustment rather than waiting for a budget amendment to actually be able to fund activity that that office holder has chosen to do. But yes, there are contingency accounts throughout the budget.
I'm looking at, just as an example, a collector. I don't see a contingency
Collectors
line.
under general fund, so there is not one for the collector.
Do you have one? The auditor's office have a contingency
The
line?
general fund has one. It's $1 million. We started the year at $1 million.
Right.
That's it for general fund. My office, the collector's office fall under the general fund. So we do not have an individual,
Well, the
Account.
recorder falls under general fund, doesn't he?
not the recorder user fee.
So
That's a
this
special
is-
revenue fund,
This is the user fee.
user fee,
It's not general fund money
not
going
general
into a
fund.
contingency.
Correct.
Well, how was it previously handled, the recorder user fee, if it wasn't put into a contingency fund?
There was anticipated budget amounts put into the budget where there weren't this year sufficient to cover what activity he's trying to pay out of that. So there was anticipation, and if it's budgeted, then obviously there's appropriation to cover it.
So perhaps either he's collecting more user fees or has fewer budgeted items this year, or both.
He was trying to move salaries, if I recall correctly, trying to move all salaries out of paying one of the part-time people, but for whatever reason, he's chosen to pay it, or that's how it's been posted. But with your approval from the prior year and affording him the opportunity to take those user fees, collect those back instead of them going into general revenue, yes, that fund is quite a bit larger than it had been historically. So setting the $100,000 aside in the contingency is just if it is needed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Good question, sir. Thank you.
Any comments from the public? Okay. Seeing none, it is 10:19 a.m. and this public hearing is closed. Thank you, Kevin. Next item on the agenda is 2025 CO118, which is actually the voting for the approval of the amendments that we just discussed.
Yes. Again, Commissioners, Kevin Robinson, Platte County Auditor. 1 second while I find my right page. Commissioners, as presented in the public hearing, a variety of posted on August 15th proposed amendment changes. There are additions that were discussed during the public hearing. Those funds and departments impacted, for the record, are again general finance lease fund, planning and zoning, deposit fund, ARPA, fiscal recovery fund, ARPA sheriff's grants fund, collector's tax maintenance fund, recorder user fund fee, road sales taxes, and I'll put these together, Kansas City, joint projects in Riverside. In addition to that, capital-wide projects and the countywide construction fund, and then within the general fund, general administration, information technology, pretrial services, prosecuting attorney, sheriff, emergency management, and transfers. With that, Commissioners, I respectfully request your approval on the proposed amendments presented to you.
I move to approve 2025-CO-118 to approve the amendments to the 2025 budget.
Did I get a second?
I do not second it.
You do not second.
I do not.
Okay, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
That motion carries 2-1. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next on the agenda, 2025 RES 057, be presented by Sheriff's Office, Captain Shanks. Morning, Jeffrey Shanks. How are you this morning?
I'm well, sir. Thank you. Good morning,
Yeah.
everyone. Jeffrey Shanks for the Sheriff's Office, Resolution 2025 RES 057. What we're requesting is approval for the Platte County Sheriff's Office to apply for grant funding through the 2025 Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG. If we are approved to apply for and are subsequently awarded this grant through the federal system, this will be a reimbursement for the cost of 50% of 2 of the full-time employees in emergency management, resulting in a supplement money coming into the sheriff to the county of $106,157.91.
I move approval of 2025-RES-057, application for 2025 Emergency Management Performance Grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Parker?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert?
Yes.
Commissioner Bananger?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next is 2025 RES 058.
Jeffrey Shanks again for the Sheriff's Office, Resolution 2025 RES 058. We're seeking approval for the Platte County Sheriff's Office to apply for grant funding through the Missouri Department of Public Safety for the 2025 Blue Shield grant application process. As your commissioners are aware, we were previously awarded Blue Shield accreditation through the state of Missouri in the new program. That now allows us to apply for grants such as this. If we are approved to apply for this grant and the grant is subsequently awarded, we will be using the money to purchase what's called a Flock Nova platform. This is an analytical software and an upgrade to existing Flock cameras currently in use in Platte County for the enhancement of public safety operations. This will allow the cameras not only to capture and record, they're solar powered and will allow for live monitoring. I believe we will be one of the first agencies in the metropolitan area to actually add this Nova platform into if we are approved and awarded this grant. The cost of that is just under $50,000, and if we are awarded the grant, that $50,000 will be awarded by the state to cover the cost of this platform purchase.
I move to approve 2025-RES-058 for application for 2025 Blue Shield grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Again, congratulations to the Sheriff's Office on achieving this Blue Shield status, and we appreciate it. It's paying dividends already.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any further comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Parker?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert?
Yes.
Commissioner Bananger?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Next is 2025 CO116.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tony Avery, Platte County Sheriff's Office Captain, retired, current radio system manager.
Welcome back.
Al Pacino, they keep pulling me back. What you have before you is Commission Order 2025 CO116, which is a contract between Platte County and Motorola Solutions for the purchase, installation, and training on of new Axis dispatch consoles for the primary and backup dispatch center for the Platte County Sheriff's Office. This is purchased off of the state cooperative purchasing agreement, MT 250038001, between Motorola and the state. The budgetary impact, as Mr. Robinson stated earlier, is $740,000, and it's currently budgeted in the 2025 budget. Any questions? I'd be happy to speak to.
I move to approve 2025-CO-116 for a contract between the county and Motorola purchasing radio consoles.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
That motion carries 2-1.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Captain.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda, 2025 CO117 to be presented by Platte County Administrator Wes Mender. Morning, Wes.
Good morning, Commissioners. 2025 CO117 involves the Northwest 76th Street Bridge. For some background on the project, originally 76th Street, Union Chapel Road was a continuous thing, and then in the 70s they were planning to build I-435. So the county and MoDOT entered into an agreement where we got the privilege of getting a highway built through the county, but we took over ownership and maintenance of some old abandoned state routes. During that time, that area was annexed into Parkville. And so there was a bridge that had fallen apart into disrepair. And there was lots of discussion on who actually owned the bridge. But Parkville, the county, and MoDOT have come together, and MoDOT is providing most of the funding for the project, but the county assisted MoDOT with obtaining some grant money. There was $608,000 in federal off-system bridge replacement programs. And then also the benefit to the county for this ordinance is we are extending the Brush Creek Trail from Route 45 and Creekside to the north, eventually to connect to McHenry Park. 76th Street is the only crossing over Brush Creek. And so we obtained a $200,000 federal surface transportation alternatives program grant to make that bridge wider. And so those two combinations of federal funding plus a cash outlay from the Parks and Recreation sales tax for trails construction of $100,000 will get us a new bridge that will allow that trail system to connect to 76th Street into the homes that live along Chapel Ridge and further along Union Chapel. And at the end of it, we will have a follow-up ordinance here in the next couple of months where we will memorialize the transfer and ownership of this bridge to the city of Parkville.
I move approval of 2025-CO-117, authorizing agreements with MoDOT for the replacement of the Northwest 76th Street Bridge.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fryder?
Yes,
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanover?
Yes.
the motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, 2025 CO119, and be presented by Jennifer Gehring, Convention and Visitors Bureau Director.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Goring, CVB Director. Before you is the Clay County Marketing Partnership Agreement for World Cup. The budget impact is $125,000. We have set aside these funds past couple of years anticipating World Cup. In meeting with Clay County Tourism, we quickly decided we are better together and we can do more together. So we created a committee of Clay County and Platte County communities plus University Extension. And from those committee meetings, we created Go North KC. And Go North KC will have its own website. The landing page just went live on Friday, so you can check it and see our great stuff that we're going to have done. We'll have a social media campaign, an ad campaign. The entire website will be done by the end of the year. Each community will have their own webpage. We'll have World Cup stuff, maps, things to see and do. So it's going to be a great website as well. Our target market for the website and for everything is the Midwest region and youth soccer. All of us, sometime or another, have had kids or no kids in youth soccer. So that's our target market, trying to get them to come in, stay up here, Go North KC, a little bit where it's safer, a lot more fun things to do. So we're leveraging Missouri Division of Tourism grants to try to get as much as we can. And another thing that came out of this committee was Tap Into Local. This is a free discount program, and it targets the wineries, breweries, and anyone can participate in it. So the businesses, they can participate, visitors and residents, and that went live last week as well. So Tap Into Local, and you can see all the discounts available. We're also contracting with Jeff Parson, the Riverside artist. He's going to create 4 murals. He does the Royals and the Chiefs down there at Riverside, has a great following. His viewers actually pick the top 4 to do, so he's going to do those. Those will travel to the watch parties that we're having in the local communities for the Arrowhead matches as well as the USA matches. One of those will be July 3rd at Live Nation Amphitheater in Riverside. Mayor Rose's promised fireworks as well. They're celebrating their 75th anniversary birthday, so she's going all out, so that'll be great. And the last we're doing, trying to go get everything I can. We're also in Parade of Hearts. So Go North KC will have a presence on their app. They're doing 150 hearts this year from April to September. We hope to have multiple hearts in our communities, and we are on the committee. I have a committee meeting here at 11 o'clock, but fun things to do. We're also going to do printed maps and visitor guides in all the hotels, so all of our visitors can get out in Platte County and Clay County. We think Platte's the first one, but don't tell them. So County Council and Auditor have reviewed it and have approved it, and we ask for your approval.
I move to approve 2025-CO-119 to enter into a partnership agreement with Clay County for marketing the World Cup.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. I love those shirts.
Thank you. You each have one.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
you.
that. So we're going to see those in stores, clothing stores around the-
Basically right now, so the communities, they just debuted at the Parkville Parade, Parkville Days Parade, Parkville Pace, they wore them. So the communities in their festivals and stuff, they'll have them on. But if you tap into local and if you take advantage of the discounts, you can build up and you can get a shirt that way.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Thanks for all your hard work on this.
You're welcome. It's been fun. It's World Cup 24/7. We're on it. It's fun.
Any further comments?
I've got a question. So this is an agreement between us and Clay County, right?
Yes, yes.
And it looks like we're spending $125,000 on this joint agreement. And Clay County, are they putting in about the same amount?
Yes.
There-
So it's basically, it's 50-50 in a way. So like for the website, we budgeted 50,000 for the website. It came in under. I had those funds earmarked already for the website. Clay County had their communities pay into that. So their communities paid into the website, whereas I took it for our communities because I had already budgeted. So basically it's a 50-50. Sometimes Clay County will go to their communities. Most of the times I won't because I've already budgeted the funds.
Okay, so essentially we're sharing the cost 50-50 with Clay
Yes.
County.
And Missouri Division of Tourism, we're leveraging those grants, which are also 50-50. So
But Clay County's twice our population, right? And you would think they would get twice of the visitors that we would, but we're paying an equal amount, even though there's twice the opportunities for World Cup visitors to go over there than here.
we have more hotel rooms over here. We also have the airport over here. So it kind of, if you're going like this, they have more, but then what we have to offer in like the airport and the hotels, it just works out. Because we'll have the visitors here. They're going to come into the airport, those that fly in. So we'll have them here that we can capture them here. We have the hotels here. So we have more hotels getting the visitors here and then they can go out, with Clay County. We want Clay and Platte. Y'all keep it in Platte, but I'll share with Clay. They have Worlds of Fun. I don't. So it works.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Clerk, please call the roll. Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
that motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next on the agenda, 2025 RES 060, to be presented by Parks and Recreation Director Daniel Erickson. Good morning, Daniel.
Commissioners, Daniel Erickson on behalf of the Parks Department. Resolution 60 is a request for bids for the Prairie Creek Greenway Trail Resurfacing Project. As you are well aware, the Parks Department, the Parks Program is, we build a lot of new stuff, a lot of new stuff going online, but it's also equally as important, if not more important, to maintain the stuff we already have. One of the major amenities in our program is the Prairie Creek Greenway Trail System, which exists south of Platte City. It's a very popular trail, high marks. It's a lot of usage. That trail was originally constructed with asphalt. Most of our new trails are now concrete, but there was a couple trail systems, Southern Platte Pass and Prairie Creek, and maybe another one that were asphalt. And like Bob Heinck would tell you, roads that are built with asphalt eventually have to be resurfaced. Trails last longer than roads, but this trail is now roughly 20 years old. It's been crack sealed many times, so this bid seeks to have it all resurfaced. So that's what we're doing here. It's a request for bids to resurface the Prairie Creek Greenway Trail system. We are having a quick turnaround time on this, trying to beat the weather and get this done this year. So the bids are due Wednesday, September 10th at 10 a.m. in the county clerk's office. The plans, the specs, which were prepared by BHC, are already publicly available on the Drexel Plan Room website. Staff recommends you approve this request for bids for this important project.
I move approval of 2025-RES-060, request for bids for the Prairie Creek Greenway resurfacing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments?
Is this just an overlay of the asphalt, or isn't it?
It's a mill and overlay or an equivalent alternative.
So they will be milled
It
off?
will be milled off. We're beyond just putting another layer on it. It needs to be milled off and overlaid. We did write in an alternative. If somebody has a different way of doing that, we'll consider that as well, but that's equivalent to a mill and overlay.
Okay.
Any further comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fricker?
Yes.
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Daniel. Next on the agenda, 2025 RES 059 to be presented by Prosecutor's Office, Justin Callway. Morning, Justin.
Morning. Commissioners, thank you for your time this morning. Mr. Zond sends best wishes. He is at a state conference today, so I am here in his place to speak briefly about Resolution 2025-059. This is the Prosecutor's Office requesting permission and approval for an application for the 2025 application for years 2026, 2027 funding for the Violence Against Women Act. This is a grant that's been in our office for over the past 15 years. It supports a position in the office to combat domestic violence and all of the intricacies and the specialization it takes to prosecute those particular kinds of cases. Like I said, we've had this over the past 15 years. We've applied for this year around to $47,000. I will tell you that's probably aspirational because this is administered through Missouri Department of Public Safety. The last round, if you'll remember, we had approximately $34,000, but it's kind of one of those things. We have the need for that amount for what it's worth. So we of course ask for that, knowing that Department of Public Safety, based on their funding and their applications and their allocations, will give us however it lands. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So we just ask you to approve us applying for that.
I move to approve 2025-RES-059 for a yearly grant renewal for STOP, VAWA grant.
Yes, it's called Stop Funding for the Violence Against Women's Act. Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fricker?
Yes.
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Thank you,
Very good.
Justin.
Thank you for your time.
Next on the agenda, 2025 RES 055 to be presented by Public Works Director Bob Heim. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Heim, Public Works. Yes, the first item before you is a request for bids on the Crooked Road bridge replacement. This is the South Bridge on Crooked Road, which is about 3/4 of a mile south of 45 Highway. It's reached the end of its service life. I think it was about a year ago. One of the wing walls started to fail on it, and that's when we started looking at it. The Parkville Road District stepped in. It's in their district, and they repaired the wall until we could get the bridge replaced. The bids will be received at the clerk's office by 4 p.m. on October 3rd, and then we will open the bids on October 6th at the administrative session. Plans for the project are available through Howe Company starting on September 15th at 8 a.m. They carry a non-refundable $50 fee, and if contractors want them mailed to them, it's another $25. For the county, we will be using our road sales tax monies, obviously, to fund this bridge initially, but we did apply for a BRO grant and receive that on this bridge. So 80% of that cost will be paid for through BRO. And then the remaining 20%, we had enough in it's another federal program, our soft match credit program, that it will cover the other 20% of this project. It's a refundable payment process, so we will pay for it initially, and then the feds will refund us through MoDOT, they administer the funds. So with that, I would ask the commissioners to approve this request for bids so that we can get it out for advertisement.
Move approval of 2025-RES-055, a request for bids for the Crooked Road South Bridge replacement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Frycker?
Yes.
Commissioner Burbridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Next is 2025 CO114.
Commissioners, CO 114 is an order approving emergency repair services between Platte County and Petroleum Equipment Incorporated of Missouri. It occurred about 2.5 months ago. We had our annual inspection. They found that there were some deteriorated spill buckets and fill tubes. It's where they literally fill our unleaded and diesel tanks. And so with that not passing, we had to meet a deadline set by the state to get these repaired. PEI, Petroleum Equipment, is our maintainer of our system at the Public Works facility. We brought them on board and they started the repair, tore off concrete cap, dug down. We ended up finding some additional issues where some black metal pipe for the venting system had deteriorated as well. And so we approved them to go ahead and replace that. Again, this is going to be with a composite material instead of steel, so this will last in the ground forever, essentially. But those repairs have been completed. We did forward this for review. Just quickly, the paperwork was reviewed by the county councilor and approved. The county auditor certified that funds in the amount of $59,742.45 was available. We have since had a repeat inspection done on it. It passed with flying colors, and the system is once again back up to 100%. So with that, I would request the commission's approval to forward payment to Petroleum Equipment Incorporated in the amount of $59,742.45.
I move to approve 2025-CO-114 to approve emergency repairs for the fuel system.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Frycker?
Yes.
Commissioner Burbridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next is 2025 CO115.
Commissioners, this final item is tied to our 2025 road surfacing project. This would be change order 2. It's on the asphalt side of things. On 76th Street, we had our second subgrade failure this year that revealed itself. It's an area about 300 feet long, roughly 11 feet wide. And we had our inspection engineer come out that followed the crew around as they paved this summer, and he took a look at it, agreed that it was subgrade failure. He said, in fact, it looked like with the rains that we had in July, that it might have awakened a small spring that softened the roadway. And so it was recommended that we excavate down about 14 inches, replace that with 6 inches of compacted base rock, then 6 inches of base asphalt and 2 inches of surface asphalt. We have gone back to Tandem Asphalt, our contractor this year, to get a price that was $65,615. They plan to perform the work in September when they pull back into the Parkville Special Road District to work on their roads. This paperwork has been reviewed by the county councilor for form and legality, and the auditor has certified that the funds are available. So with that, we would ask for the commission's approval to take care of this failure.
I move approval of 2025-CO-115, change order number 2 for asphalt on the 2025 road resurfacing program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Frycker?
Yes.
Commissioner Burbridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanacker?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Bob.
Commissioners.
Next on the agenda, announcements from county office holders and staff. Is there anybody, before the auditor comes up, is there anybody else? Chris, I understand you're applying, making final application to the governor for your permanent status? Okay.
Good luck.
Well,
Good to hear.
wishing you good luck. Sure it'll go okay.
You do.
Yes.
Is that actually with the governor or somebody else in his office?
I would assume it's
a staff member. Okay, makes sense. Anybody else? Okay. Yes, Bob.
Very quickly.
Mhm.
Just wanted to remind the citizens of Platte County that rapidly approaching is our 2025 Platte County cleanup. It's going to be held this year on September 19th and 20th, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. both days. It will be at the Public Works facility. It is a fee-based event. It's an opportunity for folks to get rid of a lot of those bulky items, old washing machines, boats, little tractors, and we've seen it all come through. And we do not take any hazardous waste materials, pesticides, antifreezes, things like that. This is basically bulky items, but please put that on your calendar and come see us on those days. We'll take care of your trash. So we got rid of about 100 tons last year. So,
Okay.
and we do try to recycle what we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments from office holders or staff?
Commissioners, give me just 1 second to unlock my computer.
Is this something you'd like to see up on the screen, Kevin? Oh, I got it.
Again, good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Robinson, Platte County Auditor. Today is the annual presentation from RSM US on the county's outside annual audit for fiscal year ending December 31, 2024. Before I turn the podium over to Kristen Hughes, who is the Managing Director of RSM US, as you're well aware, today's presentation is a little later than usual. Normally we do this in June. To ensure our compliance with all of our reporting requirements, a draft copy of our audit was filed in June with the clearinghouse to ensure, again, our compliance. Following today's presentation, a final copy will replace the draft that is on file. Today's presentation will discuss the normal items that you're accustomed to hearing. In addition, you're going to hear about three findings, 2 material and 1 significant weakness. On page 1 of the compliance report, you will find definitions of what a deficiency is and what a material weakness is and what a significant deficiency is. On page 11 and 12, of the compliance report, you will find, or page 11 and 12 of the compliance report, the letter to management, you'll find the findings listed, 2 of the findings listed on page 13 of the compliance report. The corrective action that the county is taking is included in that report. Of course, that is the report. The compliance report is the report that is posted for our single audit. It goes out onto the federal clearinghouse. Following the presentation, be glad to address any other questions that you might have. And with that, I will turn the podium over to Ms. Hughes.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right.
All right. I've put together a PowerPoint presentation. It's going to go through most of the similar topics as you've seen in the past, and a lot of that is prescribed by. There are certain topics that the auditor is expected to communicate back to those charged with governance. We call those required communications. So, going through. Here we go. So as I noted, some of those will summarize the topics in the auditor communication, summarize what's in the compliance report, and then we have just a few charts summarizing information about the county's 2024 financial performance compared to prior years. So on the first slide here, the first item I'll note is the ACOFR. We did issue an unmodified opinion, which is the formal AICPA term for what's also known as a clean opinion. Meaning the auditor's procedures determined there was reasonable assurance of no material misstatements in the financial statements. Next items, this is noted here. So just to clarify, when I say there are certain required communications from the auditor, if there are disagreements with management in the course of performing the audit or any difficulties encountered in performing the audit, such as obtaining information, responses to questions, pulling information, et cetera, we are required to communicate that back to those charged with governance. So that's just to note here, neither of those situations we ran into in the performance of our audit. There were no significant or unusual transactions noted in the 2024 financials compared to prior years. The next item, we usually highlight if there was any new standards that were adopted in the event that they had a material impact in the financials this year. So the standards did require, there's a new GASB 101. It deals with the financial reporting and accounting around compensated absences, which that is defined as, that's going to be an entity's accrued sick, vacation, PTO, whatever those balances look like for organizations. So the GASB just put out a new standard that clarified they made some modifications in how that liability is accounted for in the financial statements. So that has been implemented in this year's report. You'll see a note specifically in this year's ACOFR that just talks about the implementation of that standard. The next item, this is just to remind you there are certainly areas within the financials that are considered significant estimates that have a component of subjectivity. So we take a look at those as part of the audit. In the report to those charged with governance, you'll see specific examples listed that would relate to your financials. Those are going to include things like, for example, the net pension liability that's recorded for participation in loggers and SURF. There are actuarial assumptions that are involved in determining that liability. So that is areas where it's not necessarily, I'll just say, a black and white cash in, cash out transaction. And so as part of the audit, we do take a look at those estimates. We're really looking for a couple areas. One, that the assumptions or estimates are supported. If it's an area that the county has a policy on, that the policy appears to be being followed. And then also just perspective on, did the estimates seem reasonable with peers in the industry? Any unusual outliers in how those are being accounted for, and none were noted. Audit adjustments. So this is a scenario where we are provided with the original trial balance at the time the audit is started as we're going through our testing. If there is any material adjustments noted in the course of the audit identified by the audit team, that's what we call an audit adjustment. So there was one that came up this year in auditing the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. You'll see there was a $1.5 million expenditure that had been double counted, basically an error. It was accrued for in last year's report based on the underlying expense being incurred at that time. I believe the bill was actually paid for in 2024. And so that's how it got double counted in error. So just to clarify, an adjustment means, and then why you see revenue and unearned revenue noted there. Specifically, this was spending of ARPA funds. And so revenue is recognized on the ARPA funds as expenditures are incurred. That was an instance for that particular grant where the county received the money in advance. It's recorded as a liability. And then as the monies are spent down, both expenditures and revenue are recognized. So that correction was adjusted in the financials for that. Uncorrected misstatements, these are items that are defined as being clearly immaterial to the financials. Management reaches that conclusion, and the audit firm agrees with that assessment. So there's one uncorrected misstatement specific to, I apologize, I forget the full name of that acronym, but basically the county participates in a pension plan for prosecuting attorney. There's, I believe, one participant, two, thank you. One. Okay, so the liability itself is immaterial to the financials, so that's just not reflected in the county's financial statements due to immateriality and the disclosures that would be around that plan. And then the second item, there was a correction. There were capital assets that were expensed last year. They were purchased in 2023, should have been capitalized. They were expensed in air. And so that was corrected in 2024. But we note that as a past adjustment because in correcting that, that really meant that this year's financials expenses were basically understated as a result of having to correct that and capitalize that in a subsequent year. The last item there is just to note, there's disclosures in the financials, specifically note 15 on any pending GASB pronouncements. That can be key, just depending on what standards are coming up, if those may have significant impact in the financials in the future. So this slide summarizes the information in the compliance report. Kevin touched upon this a bit. So as a reminder, any organization that expends more than $750,000 in federal grant expenditures is required to have a compliance audit or a single audit. The county exceeds that. So this separately issued document, it provides grant information. So within that, you'll see the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, but then this is also the document that the auditor issues a report on internal controls, both over financial reporting as well as that single audit. So as a reminder, an audit firm is not giving an opinion on internal controls. That's not the purpose of an audit. But we are tasked with, if the standards require, if we become aware of anything that rises to the level of a material weakness or significant deficiency, those are to be communicated in writing. And the standards specifically say those letters or reports are included in the compliance report. So as Kevin mentioned, that report defines what a material weakness, significant deficiency are. In summary, you'll see a material weakness. I believe it says that there was a deficiency noted that could rise to an undetected material misstatement occurring in the financials. And then a significant deficiency is defined as being less severe than that. However, something that warranted being brought to the attention of those charged with governance. So the first material weakness you'll see noted is inadequate controls over bank reconciliations. So in the compliance report, you'll see a description. And again, we have required bullet points. The auditor is intended to follow certain required bullet points. So just so you know, when you read through that, when it says finding, criteria, content, that's the exact format we are to follow. And in that, you'll see details. So basically, in summary, it was noted that bank reconciliations were not occurring in a timely manner in 2024. It goes through and talks about the effect or potential effect. And one of the potential effects noted is that in the absence of that occurring in a timely fashion, it increases the risk of material misstatements within the financial statements. So that's the first material weakness noted. There was an unreconciled variance when the auditor's office performed the 2024 reconciliations and got caught up on those in 2025. An unreconciled variance was identified for approximately $210,000 that was recorded into the financial statements. And so that's one of the items that have been reflected in the financials. The next material weakness actually ties in with the item I mentioned. So that $1.5 million error that was identified on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and then had an immediate impact on the revenue recognition and the financials being too high. Given the $1.5 million dollar amount there, that was assessed as a material weakness because we also take into consideration the dollar amounts compared to how we define materiality at the start of the audit. And then the last item, significant deficiency, that also relates to the past audit adjustment I mentioned earlier. So there was a dollar amount of capital assets purchased in 2023 that was not properly capitalized. They were capitalized in 2024. So that was assessed as a significant deficiency, that correction. The single audit, as I mentioned, we follow the uniform grant guidance when performing the federal audit. There was one major program tested this year. It was the county's continued spend on of the ARPA funds. Just for perspective, so we pick what's called a major program or a grant. So on this year, the ARPA spending does represent 87% of total federal expenditures. So just for perspective, we subjected to testing approximately 87%. Again, same as a financial statement audit, the testing in the major program is done on a sample basis. So we don't audit 100% of the transactions, nor are we intended to, but all of the ARPA funds were subject to sample testing. And in the course of that, the major program also received an unmodified or clean opinion, and there were no findings or question costs noted in the sample of ARPA invoices we reviewed. Here for financial summary. So before I jump into this, you've seen the aquifer. It's obviously a larger document. So at a high level, I mean, in the course of that document, you'll find what's referred to as the introductory section. That includes management's discussion and analysis, which goes through and provides a detailed summary. I say detailed, it's also a much more condensed than looking at the full 150 or 200 page report. But management goes through and discusses and analyzes the 2024 results compared to 2023. The financial statements include individual balance sheet and income statements for each fund that the county has created budgets for. And then there's also a consolidated financial statements at the very front that are the county-wide balance sheet and income statement. There are footnotes that go through a lot of detailed information. Again, GASB has required disclosures and the county has met each of those requirements. They're going to go into areas such as disclosures around the county's cash and investment portfolio, outstanding long-term liabilities, whether that's bonded debt or pension, compensated absences, leases, et cetera. There's information about the capital assets. There's detailed disclosures about the pension plans, et cetera. So there's quite a bit of content in the footnotes. And then at the back is this statistical section. So that's unaudited by the auditor, but it's a lot of people find that meaningful. It's most of those schedules are required 10-year presentations. So if you're looking for things like trends in areas such as outstanding debt, revenue, even just demographic information about the county, that is in that section. So just a few highlights here. So the general funds fund balance, which again is equity of the governmental funds, was at $22.97 million. Fund balance is required to be presented into 5 classifications. So what each of those represents, starting at the right, non-spendable, that represents just prepaids that the general fund is expended by the end of the year. Restricted, that yellow category, that means a third party has actually put a restriction on how certain dollars are spent. You know, grants might be an example. A third party has said how those funds have to be spent. The middle category, committed, that means that has been earmarked by the commission. So in the general fund, that is amounts earmarked for future debt service payments. The green category is assigned. So those are amounts that are earmarked by the departments. So for example, future encumbrances, POs, et cetera. And then the red category is the unassigned fund balance available in the general fund. Here is just a 10-year history of what fund balance in the general fund has looked like. So you'll see it has increased notably over the last 3 years, specifically in the general fund. This slide shows also the 10-year history of outstanding debt and leases. So you'll see it's just around $5 million at December 31st. That's about $3.5 million, I believe, on the last special assessment bond. And then that additional $1.5 million is finance purchases, lease liabilities, and subscription liabilities. So it's a combination of both bonded debt and then lease liabilities that the county has. This is a summary of all governmental funds. So the blue bar there at the top, revenue. So revenue increased about $10 million this year compared to the prior year. Probably at least half of that was intergovernmental revenue, and more specifically, the spending of ARPA funds increased in 2024 compared to 2023. So as I mentioned earlier, revenue moves in conjunction with the expenditures. So with increased spending, increased revenue is recognized on the spend down of those dollars received. And then investment earnings also saw a more positive return in 2024. Expenditures increased about $3.5 million in 2024. And again, I think most of that would be attributable to the increased activity in the spend down of the ARPA funds. At the bottom, I mean, you'll see that yellow category, issuance of debt leases. This stays very low other than maybe some smaller lease agreements being entered into. The county has issued no, obviously, debt in the last few years. All right, I know that was high level on the financial side, but like I said, the annual comprehensive financial report is a pretty detailed document. So happy to go through any questions, whether it's on the deliverables or the audit process.
Thank you, Krista. Much appreciated. Does anybody have any comments? I have some comments. First of all, I want to congratulate the auditor's office for the hard work that you guys do, especially with the ARPA money. I know that's been tricky, and managing the ins and outs of that money is difficult. You guys are very accurate. It's my understanding that the findings here have nothing to do with things that occurred in your office, but things that occurred in other offices. So I just want to let you know that want to acknowledge that and the hard work that you guys do in keeping the county financials in order. So thank you. I do have some comments, however, regarding one of the findings, and that is item Roman numeral 2, letter A. It is identified as a material weakness, and it is an unreconciled variance of approximately $210,000. And we have discussed this. And this is related to issues that occurred in the previous treasurer's office. And the auditor stepped in when the treasurer's office needed some additional help, reconciled bank accounts, and discovered these material issues. So I don't want to focus on the good work that you did here, because you did. What I want to focus on is kind of the history of that money, that situation. Again, this is a material weakness. A potential effect could be increased risk of material misstatement of financial statements due to errors or misappropriation of funds. This is a lot of money that essentially is revenue that was booked but didn't make it to the bank, in my understanding. And
I'm sorry, state that again? Booked but didn't make it to the
okay,
bank?
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, please. My understanding is these were entries as income, but they weren't in bank reconciliations. So they were unreconciled revenue entries. Is that correct or no?
So the $210,000 that was identified during the bank reconciliation process was actually interest. We'll say the majority of it, without going into a forensic audit and tying every line out. The bank statements reflected the interest income associated with maturities. Those entries were not booked on the general ledger. So the money was in the bank, but it was not in the general ledger. So the general ledger's revenue was understated by the $210,000.
Okay, appreciate the
Yes, sir.
correction. Nonetheless, this is a material finding, and I want to go back to your audit, Kevin, of your transition audit of the treasurer's office, where you list many problems, from a lack of bank reconciliations for many months, increasing error rates, significant items, I think you would agree. And then you mention on the first page that while extensive, and they were extensive, the findings are considered immaterial. They were extensive, they were immaterial, they've now been classified as material, at least to some extent. There was no press release on this. Your audit was never posted to your website, where you have many, many audits posted, until I sent you an email. This was done in December, your audit of the treasurer's office. On March 28th, I sent you an email that said many things, but it also said your audit isn't listed on the webpage. So from December to the end of March, the audit wasn't posted. It seemed to me, and you didn't notify the public of the issues in the treasurer's office. It seemed to me that the issues were significant. The audit should have been published to the website, and the public should have been notified. Neither of those occurred. In fact, Recorder Chris Wright kind of sounded the alarm back in June of last year when he notified you and your office and others that revenues were being receipted to the wrong bank accounts and into the wrong accounts. And in his view, and I'm not familiar with the details of that, but in his view, this was significant. And then you followed that up with a press release that says he was incorrect about his assumptions. Seems to me, turns out that he was absolutely correct in what he was saying, and that you should have supported his comments to the public and to others, because he was right. He was the canary in the coal mine. In fact, a month or so ago, maybe it's a couple months now, you and Commissioner Vanover and I were sitting here talking about the audit and the delay in the audit. And you said that you knew about these findings, you knew about the issues going on in the Treasurer's office for over 2 years. You said that to Commissioner Vanover and myself. And I couldn't believe that you said that, because we were in the process of forcing out the treasurer, because we knew the issues that existed and we knew that we needed to change. Yet you knew about the issues for over 2 years. How, we don't even know what this number of $210,000 would be like if you had just said something back in the beginning, right? It doesn't make sense to me that you knew about frankly, the chaos in the treasurer's office, and you didn't say a word until the commission, until Recorder Wright sounded the alarm. The commission followed the recorder's lead and started making a case about the issues in the treasurer's office. In fact, excuse me one second. So to contrast your audit, your transition audit in the treasurer's office with an audit that you did of the senior tax freeze program, which was frankly in progress, not even completely developed, and yet you issued an audit, did an audit of the procedures and the methods and things that were in draft form. And it was immediately posted to your website, and you issued a press release about it. So a really almost meaningless audit, you were quick to tell the world about it and get it on the website as fast as possible. But a significant audit of the treasurer's office, which identified massive problems, not potential problems as you identified in the senior tax freeze audit, actual real problems, was never, you never notified the public, and you didn't post it on your website. So my first question to you is, considering the audit that we now have today of the county's audit, are you going to restate your conclusion of the treasurer's audit as to whether or not it was significant?
So, Commissioner, I mean, you have made many references in there. I will address your question, but let's work through and unpack some of the things that you have just referenced.
Okay.
So first, Recorder Wright's statement that his funds were being deposited into the wrong bank account is not an accurate statement, and that is what I stated. The funds were deposited correctly. As I stated in that report, my response was, what he was looking at was once the treasurer's office had actually posted the transaction into the general ledger, it was done incorrectly.
Okay. So he was pointing out mistakes. He was pointing out mistakes.
Shouldn't
that have been
absolutely.
Shouldn't that have been a red flag that things were going on in there that maybe shouldn't have been going on?
I was well aware of posting errors prior to that. And
I mean, as far back as 2 years prior to that, I guess. And
So
so I guess my next question would be, why didn't you address that when you knew the issues were going on? We had to wait for recorder Wright to sound the alarm.
Commissioner, actually, if you were to pull emails, you'll see that there was an extensive amount of conversation between my office and the treasurer's office about errors and us providing them correcting entries long before Christopher Wright's comments.
Why didn't you tell anybody about that? I mean, you're telling the world about a draft program that you see has mistakes before it's even
With all due
completed.
respect, that doesn't have anything to do with this.
What's the difference in whether in transparency? There's two different situations here. One, you're incredibly transparent and communicating with the public, and in the other one, you're incredibly non-transparent with issues, significant issues that are occurring in the treasurer's office, who deals with $110 million a year.
So to again address some of the comments that you have made, as far as the transition audit, which the key staff transition audit, which is what you're referring to, not being posted, that was oversight. I take responsibility for it.
Was the lack of a press release, was that also oversight? Not telling the public, was that oversight? In a significant audit, would you agree that that was a significant audit with
Absolutely,
significant findings?
Absolutely, sir.
Why didn't you tell the public?
I don't put a press release out with every audit.
You sent a press release on on the audit you did of a draft program. You sent a press release on that.
The program had launched and the audit was.
Well, it
at
had
the
not been
launch.
launched. Many of those things that you mentioned were in draft stage. The question is, why did you send a press release on that audit, significantly less, very much less significant than the issues that were occurring in the treasurer's office? Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would agree with that. What was occurring in the treasurer's office?
Why didn't
was
you tell the
significant.
public about the issues in the treasurer's office?
I don't have an answer to that. I published my report, which is what I typically do. Apparently it didn't. I didn't know that.
Many times you issue press releases, like on this stupid little SB 190 audit that you did. You didn't think about letting the people know that our treasurer was a total disaster. We had to take care of that. Commission had to take care of that. You could have taken care of that long before we did by telling the public what was going on in that office. Yet it kept dragging on and on and on and on until we did something about it, until I did something about it.
Yeah. As I indicated, I had believed that the report had been published. We don't do that.
No,
But-
nobody checks
and-
for published reports.
Okay.
They read the paper and they read press releases. That's why we send them out.
And as far as you and I were both involved in conversations, at the time, nothing that the treasurer was doing raised to the level of being able to remove him from office. The communications was with the office holder. I can't manage that office. I can just provide him with the errors, and that's what I had done.
So you mean error rates that went from 0 in January to 81% in June is not enough reason to
21%,
put serious
sir.
pressure on the treasurer to fix.
21%, sir, not.
I'm sorry?
21%, not 81.
Oh, no. I know that number because I've read it many times. They increased error rate from 0 to, I believe, 81%. I could be off by a few, but nevertheless. It just seemed to me like that is a massive red flag. All of a sudden, everything is going to be an error. You keep that trend going. It just seems to me like you made a real effort to hide the results of the treasurer's office, and what we ended up with was a real mess. And I think interim treasurer Chris Kendall would attest to that. It's unfortunate. It's now led to material finding in the audit. Like I said, I think the auditor's office does a fantastic job of keeping the books and keeping us straight, financials in order. I just think that this situation with the treasurer has never been dealt with. It's never been public, and now it is.
I respect your opinion.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry?
Were there any other questions?
No, I don't have any further questions. Joe?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. On to number 7, public comments. Does anybody from the public have any comments? Are there any comments from the commission?
No comments.
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinker?
Yes,
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanden?
Yes.
that motion carries 3-0. It is 11:22 a.m. and we are adjourned.